Hi. So today we got another question with two possible answers as usual. Would you rather be able to fly or be invisible? Now, these are two completely separate alternatives because they are entirely different powers or superpowers. But that doesn't prevent us from making comparisons on certain aspects. So let's just do that. Let's go step by step and start with the first one, flying. Are there downsides to being able to fly? Obviously, there are positives, that's clear right away, but are there negatives too? Well, if you fly, people can see you for one. That could be good or bad. And when you've got a supernatural power, it's usually smarter to keep it under wraps because privacy becomes important, like the greatest superheroes always teach us. If people see you have a superpower, they start coming to you with requests, like you have just won the lottery, and that will freak you out immediately. Being invisible, on the other hand, is the very definition of privacy, or at least it seems to be. We'll see later that things aren't really like that. Now, the upsides of flying couldn't be clearer, in my opinion. Humanity has been dreaming about this forever. Technically, we already know how to fly, but only thanks to technology, airplanes, helicopters, and the likes. On the other side of things, current technology, to be honest, already gives us a kind of invisibility, but only in a loose sense, or if you prefer, in a way that's way too specific to matter for regular folks like us. And I'm talking about those stealth airplanes that are invisible in quotes to radar. And there are also technologies that, if I remember correctly, use light manipulation and reflection and dynamics to make objects, usually vehicles, invisible to the human eye. But it's unclear, or at least I don't know, whether this is truly cutting edge science, technologies under development that might one day produce prototypes, or just science fiction being passed off as a reality. So, what's the real advantage of flying naturally without any technological support? I'd say the real perk is that we could fly whenever we want without having to deal with booking flights or waiting around. Flying could also replace cars, trains, and so on, making travel faster, skipping traffic, all of that. However, compared to all those means we have seen, we can only travel at a relatively limited speed. Otherwise, the air pressure would crush us. Surely many of you have at least once tried sticking your face or even just your hand out of a car window while speeding down the highway as a passenger. That's what I'm talking about. And of course, you are exposed to the weather. There are fixes for that, at least partially, but still. Another potential concern, another thing to think about, is for those who, like me, get dizzy easily. But dizziness usually hits people who are afraid of falling from a certain height and smashing into the ground several feet below. If you are flying, though, gravity doesn't bother us at all, so dizziness basically is not a problem anymore because it just has no reason to happen. The bottom line is, despite its limits, flying is just as awesome as you'd expect. It's like in open world video games. At first, you see a place way out on the horizon, but don't bother walking there because it takes forever. Then, at some point, the game gives you a flying vehicle or you unlock the ability to fly, and suddenly you get a whole new game. Oh, one more thing. The fact that people could recognize us while we are flying makes it a good idea to cover our faces with a mask. At that point, you might as well throw on a full costume and become a superhero. So there's also the fun bonus of getting creative with some design. You just can do that if you are invisible. Now back to invisibility. Lots of characters in movies, comics, and other fiction aimed at younger audiences forget something important. When we disappear, it doesn't mean the stuff we're wearing disappears too. As H.G. Wells showed, even science fiction has to respect certain rules to keep readers and viewers immersed. You can come up with the widest powers, but they still need to fit into the basic framework of physical reality, like, say, the law of thermodynamics. Nothing is created, nothing is destroyed. If you don't respect that at least a little, the story risks falling apart and losing its credibility. Now, Wells, too, being a Victorian author, sort of, cared about science and about adhering to scientific principles. Indeed, the invisible man has to walk around naked if he truly wants to be invisible, because otherwise his presence will be betrayed by what he wears. His clothes, in fact, don't share the man's invisibility, unlike those of Sue Storm, the invisible woman of the Fantastic Four. At first, her clothes didn't disappear either, but then they must have realized they couldn't have a young woman running around naked in a comic for kids. So they invented unstable molecules that made her clothes vanish too. This is a contrived explanation, but probably a necessary one in the context of a comic book series. And just to clear up any confusion, I'm not saying sci fi shouldn't break scientific rules. It's obvious that superpowers are called that precisely because they break the laws of physics, right? But precisely because they break them, this shows us that the author acknowledges their validity to begin with. An example of an unacceptable violation of scientific principles would be Dracula turning into a swarm of rats or into a wolf. That's in Bram Stoker's original novel, by the way. There is, in fact, no scientific principle that, if denied, could justify this kind of superpower. And it's no coincidence that Dracula is classified as a horror character rather than a science fiction character. Horror stories can deal with areas and themes that science fiction just can't, like magic and the kind of magical thinking found in folk superstitions. So, in the end, if we go with the invisibility, we got to accept that to be truly unnoticed, we'd have to walk around naked with nothing on us or in our hands. Only what's an integral part of our body will be invisible, and that includes things like nails, skin, hair, etc. So, what would be the actual benefits of invisibility? Honestly, I can't see many. In fact, I see more problems than advantages. First of all, notice it says being invisible, not becoming invisible. We have to pay attention to every word here. That could mean that, unlike Sue Storm, we don't get an on-off switch, so to speak. If you choose flying, you can decide whether to fly or not. If you chose invisibility, you're invisible, period. We are not allowed to assume we can turn off invisibility at will. It's not specified in the text at all. Another disadvantage of being invisible, probably a minor one, is that any concern with the aesthetics loses its meaning. And if we are physically attractive, if we have this gift, that will bring us no advantage because no one will be able to see us. So there's no point in making yourself look good. You wouldn't even see your reflection in the mirror. Oh, and if someone thinks invisibility would make crime easier, think again. Only your body disappears. That bag with the dollar sign hovering roughly 5 feet 7 inches above the ground would instantly make people think of you. Oh, and forget about sneaking around in winter, unless you want hypothermia. So yeah, invisibility might look like a huge advantage at first glance, but if you scratch beneath the surface, it's clear. Virtually nothing that glitters is gold when it comes to being invisible. Oh, here's one last point that comes to mind. When we eat, food is converted into waste in our intestines. Since invisibility applies only to our body and not to the stuff we take in, people would literally see what's in our stomach and intestines, including the poop. And that's not a pretty picture. Wells knew this as well, and he included it, or at least hinted at it, in his novel. There's probably a lot more to say, but that's all I can think of at the moment. So feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below if you've got any more ideas. As for me, I think it's obvious at this point I'd go with flying. Let's see what others chose. 65, fly. 35, being invisible. Okay. And here's, as usual, a teaser for the next dilemma.